Hi and welcome back to another Nuke tutorial. My name is Sebastian and today we're going to look at keying inside of Nuke. So I'll be taking some footage of an explosion from our Gas Explosions Volume 2 pack. I'll be using the raw footage from it, so it doesn't have an alpha channel, and we're going to create an alpha channel from scratch. So this is really useful if you have some footage that doesn't have an alpha channel and you want to do it on your own. So I'll be looking at the different keyers that we have in Nuke. We'll be combining them, and we'll also be working with some despilling, and then we'll all wrap it up real nice. Alright, let's get to it. Alright, so before we jump into Nuke, I'll be working with one of these. It's from the Explosion Volume 2 pack, and we have the option to download ProRes and the raw red file, the R3D file here, and the ProRes files contain an alpha channel, but the red file, the raw file, is just completely raw from the camera, and that's what we're going to be working with. We're going to try and create an alpha channel from the raw file. Alright, so let me just start off by bringing in our footage. So I got our gas explosion here, raw red file. We have all the settings here that we can tweak. We have the white balance, the ISO that we can tweak to get rid of some noise and improve our key. But I'm just going to leave it at default and get started. First off, I'm just going to change the format to 1080, so we're working at a reasonable resolution. So I'm going to reformat this now. So we're not getting the full benefits of the 5K plate, but for the sake of the tutorial and for my computer not to be crashing all the time, I'm just going to change it to 1080. I'm going to be working in this format. So if you want better results, you can always just work in the 5K format. So I'll just quickly go over the different keyers, or at least a few of them, the ones that I like to use. And that is the keyer, which is a luminance keyer, or it can be any key really, but you have all these different options in here. You can choose what kind of screen you're using really, and then there's the key light, which is a pretty standard keyer. It works really well with most green screens and blue screens, and even at just basic contrast keys really. So it can do a lot of different things. You have some other keyers in here in this little menu here. You have the Primat and different keyers, IBK keyers. They're really good for if you're using a blue screen or green screen and you have a clean plate of the screen. These two are really good to use. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'll just be using these two, and we'll just look at ways to combine them and combine different keys really. So first of all, let me just show you how the keyer looks. Just going to close these off. And as you can see, let's just jump into alpha mode here, and we can see as soon as we start tweaking it, right now it's in luminance operation, so it's just working from contrast light values, and you can see that you're getting some of the details in here that we don't want. So when you key, we want to focus on the edges as well as getting details, and also getting a good core key as well. So let me just change this to blue screen, and now you can see that we're starting to get a nice contrast with the sky. And right now you can see that we're starting to get all of the noise that's in the blue channel, where most of the noise lays. So we can do a denoise after the reformat here. When working with keying, you always want to denoise it, because you're going to get a lot of artifacts if you don't denoise, basically. I'll show you the difference right now. Right now you can see that it's smoothing all of this noise away, and you're not seeing it. You're not seeing it in a plate at all, pretty much. You're just seeing some differences here. But when you actually key, you can see that it has a huge impact. All of these little dots here, all of this noise is going to affect our key. So we just want to be using a denoiser to improve our result. So we're getting a pretty nice edge here. We're getting a good core, some spots here, and there's a lot of details and there's these gray areas here and a lot of these spots that we want to make sure that we capture. So I'm not sure. We can try and compare it with the result we're getting from the key light now. And the key light works pretty much in the same way. You use this little button, this little square here, and you sample a color of the background that you want to get rid of. And you can sample a little bit more also here. And now you can just adjust the screen gain and screen balance to tweak it. As you can see, we're getting a pretty decent edge here, but we're probably going to lose some of these details. So we'll look at ways to hold and to capture some of these gray area details that's sort of in between, because we want to be working with might be working with multiple keys here and then combine them. So I'll show you how to combine different keys here. So let's say we want to use another key light here, and we want this one to be a little bit more in the grays here, so we're sort of capturing both. Maybe something like this, and this other one is going to be more crunched, maybe like that. And say we want to combine these two, so we're going to use the key mix. The key mix is just merging two alpha channels based on your mask, really. So let's just put these two into inputs and create a roto. And you won't see any difference until you start actually painting a roto like this. So now you can see that you have the A channel inside of the mask, so you can just switch these around if you want to get more of these gray details. So now you can just, feather it, maybe feather it the other way around actually, like so. So now we're getting some of these gray details in here. And of course, this roto, you have to animate it over time, so that it's not really staying put at one point. So we just want to be, moving it around over time, really, like this. Starting completely at the source here, and it's going to grow. You can just take your time and do this properly. I'm just going to quickly go over it and do it sort of approximately this. I think we'll just stop around maybe 350, leave it at that. So 350, okay, somewhere around there. We might not end up using this, but it's mostly just to show you how you can combine keys and then work on getting the best result out of your keys, really. Let's just see how this looks over a background. So I'm just gonna pop in a checkerboard, and we are going to put our plate into A, because when you work with keys, we usually work on a separate branch working on the alpha channel, and then we have another branch where the original plate is coming in. Usually it's not even denoised, but you can use the denoiser if you want, but I'm just going to leave it outside of the denoiser. The mask for this will be our alpha channel, our final output from our alpha branch here. So I'm just going to change the operation to copy. So now we have a proper alpha, a proper mask for our plate here. So now you can see that we have a pretty decent edge once we look over it. We getting some of this natural transparency here. I think it's actually, we have this transparency is supposed to be there. So I mean, if you go ahead and look a little bit when the explosion is more solid, you can see that we might have to work on the D-spill. Oops. Like that. Okay, yeah. So let's do a little bit of work on the D-spill here. We're getting some of these blue colors here. So instead of having to desaturate it afterwards and then, do something like saturation like this, and then masking out the areas that you wanna, this is gonna be a pain to have to do it this way. So we're gonna work on a despill technique here to mask out only the edges that's affected by the spill, and then pop that mask into a color correct node. So I'll just create another key light, and we'll pop this source into our denoiser node here, and then we'll just sample some of the sky. Actually, we'll sample some of the edges. We'll try to get as close to the edge as we can. So we want everything aside the explosion to be white. So maybe, so as you can see, we're selecting the parts that have the spill onto it. So we're sort of trying to get, the best kind of edge that we can get. So let's try work with this and see how we're looking really. Let's just see how this looks. So let's just create another color correct node. We're going to get our plate again, and we're going to bring it down here. And now for the mask of this color correct node, we'll pop our newly created alpha channel here. And so when you, for example, take down the saturation for this, it's going to take down the saturation only for white areas created by this mask. So we're only affecting the edges now. As you can see, we're taking away the blue from this part of the smoke. That's what we want, but we have to make sure that we're not affecting the core too much, because some of it might be, for example, here. We don't want to affect this part here. So for this, we might have to just combine another key. So let's just try another keyer for this, and we're gonna get our denoise result here. We'll just do something like this, and this luminance keyer, actually we'll change it to a blue screen keyer. We're just gonna crunch it a little bit so that we get a nice core. Actually, we'll put that back and something like this. So we have a really good core here. We want to invert it so it's all black, and maybe this we'll erode inwards. We use the blur version of it, so I'll just erode it inwards, blur it, maybe even a little bit more. And now we have, this is our edges, and we're trying to get rid of the core of this now. So here we have a core key of this. So now we can just try to merge these so that we're getting rid of the core. So let's just try a merge node here. I'm going to try a merge node with a multiply on it here. So now we can see that we're sort of eating off the core, which was white originally. So we're sort of eating away on that, getting rid of that, so that we only have the edges being affected by it. So right here in our color correct node, let's just change the mask to this result here. So now you can see that we're not affecting the core at all. We're only affecting the edges. So we can actually review our result even better with a grade node here. So let's just say we want to change the color of the edges. So it's just going to use the same mask here. Then you can just use maybe a gain, and you can just use this to tint the sky or the edges to whatever background you're using. This despill is usually depending on what kind of background you're using. So if you're using a background with a more of a bluish tint, then you can just tint the edges more blue or yellowish, whatever fits best really. So as you can see that we're not affecting the core at all. We're only affecting the edges. That's what we want. And you can always come back and then blur this edge a little bit more. You can just come back here and add a blur node, and you can just fade out this edge so it's not too sharp. Obviously we're not going to have this extreme of a tint to it, but it's more just to show you. And now you can actually see the result. So let's just bring in a background photo here. It's just a desert photo like this. So I'm just going to pop this into, just exchange it with the checkerboard here. And now we can actually just reformat it, and now you can see that we have it over our dessert. Now we can see that, let's just change the plate here so that we're actually getting the result of the D-spill. So now you can see it's way too blue, but that's because we tinted it. So if you want it a little bit more of a deserty color, you can just tint it towards that. Not too much, but you know, just to make it fit a little bit better. And you can also see that we have this smoke here. Instead of it being blue, you can change the tint to it without even affecting the core of it. So that's basically just how we set up a very kind of a simple D-spill setup with the help of two different keyers, using those as a mask for color correcting and grades or wherever you need, really. Alright, so now let's just move this explosion up so we're actually seeing it a little bit better. So when we use a separate alpha channel tree here, let me just delete this keyer here. Clean this up so it looks a little bit more tidier. Like this. So when we use a separate alpha channel branch over here, and we want to move the plate, we're gonna split up. We're gonna offset the alpha channel. So either you can just create a clone out of this, and the clone will basically just, now these two are basically just the same transformer node. So whenever you move this, you can move the alpha channel with it. So you can actually move it around without worrying about offset. You can either do that, or you can just use a copy node like this, and you can just copy over the alpha channel from your alpha branch over to your plate. So now in this D-spill plate, you're actually having the same alpha channel as we made here. It's probably easiest. So now you can just transform this. Now you don't even have to worry about using a mask here. So you might just have to pre-multiply it afterward here. So like that. And also just change this operation here again to over or something like that. So now we can just transform it with this transform node without having to deal with a clone. So like that. Now we can just scale it down like so. And also obviously we have to deal with the ground here. We can just do that with a basic roto, really. You can just paint out the ground here. So, and you can just set the operation here to minus. So it's going to minus whatever is in this roto here, like that. So now we're not getting that ground. Just feather this one way, like that, maybe. I mean, we have some grays here. It's probably going to look weird, but you can always just come back and tweak that. But over this background, you're not going to see too much. But if you want a clean key, you can just combine several other keyers and just crunch them and then animate the roto. So you're sort of combining the best out of all the different keyers. Alright, so now that we have our setup, you can always just come back and tweak things to make it fit better. Now we can always just, add our final touches with a light wrap node maybe. So we can, actually we'll try this after our transform, and like that. So the light wrap node basically just spills light from the background over to the foreground. So and you can just play with these settings. This little handy little quick node just to make it blend a little bit nicer. Adding a little bit of touch to it. Like that. Alright, so let me just quickly go over what we've done here. So we've just denoised the footage before keying here. We've used two different keyers. We've combined them with a key mix. You can always just stack these up and do this process over again if you want to get rid of details or add more details if you want. But I've just been using one key mix here for the sake of this tutorial. And we have another branch here for despill. I've just created two different keys for the edges here and one for the core. I've combined these with just a merge node, and I've used this key as a mask into a color correct node just to desaturate the edges, to get rid of any kind of color that we don't want. And then I've just added a grade node which we can use to tint the edges to whatever color we need it to be depending on the background that we're using. And I've used a copy node here to copy the alpha channel from our keyers, main keyers here, into our plate, which is the process plate here. So, and this is just pre-multiplied. I've placed it in the middle with a transform node, and I've used the light wrap just to blend it a little bit better. But hopefully you got a better overview of how to work with keying and how to combine multiple keys. A quick way to deal with edges and despilling, and then combining your final alpha channel with your foreground plate before putting it on your background. Alright, so I hope you learned something. I hope you'll be able to use these techniques for your own projects and create something awesome. If you liked this video, if you learned something from it, hit the like button. And also don't forget to subscribe if you want more videos like these, and also catch up on any news or upcoming events happening at ActionVFX.com. Alright, see you later for the next one. Goodbye.